So in a recent discussion in my Discord, we were trying to figure out whereabouts each of the special grades would sit in a top 5 setting. And initially I thought I had an answer, but then the more I thought about it, the more I realized my initial thoughts didn't quite feel right. So in this video, we're going to rank the special grades in a top 5 scenario. But before we get into the video, make sure to like, comment your thoughts down below, and subscribe for more juicy manga content. But without further ado, let's get into it. And also, by the way, manga spoilers ahead. Starting out at number 5, I'm placing Kenjaku square into last place. And you might be thinking to yourself, what in the actual is going through your brain putting the main villain into last place? And yeah, I'm aware, but before you all come at me with the pitchforks again, I'm going to break it down as to why he sat in the last place. You see, while Kenjaku is the main antagonist of the series, and currently he's caused our protagonists to take some of the most major L's, e.g. the Shibuya incident, Gojo being sealed, and multiple casualties to the Jujutsu High members, as well as almost everyone involved walking away with some sort of injury, whether it be mental or physical. But during that arc, Kenjaku didn't really intervene much. We didn't get to see just how strong he is in 1v1 combat, and considering he's a sorcerer who's been around for over 1,000 years, you would have expected this man to have rocked up to Shibuya ready to throw hands with everyone. But he didn't, and in fact he sat back in a very passive role, like the grand mastermind playing a chess game, and instead he let Choso and the Disaster Cases take the brunt of the beating from Gojo, Sukuna, as well as the Jujutsu High members. And in 205 chapters of Jujutsu Kaisen, we really haven't seen just how strong Kenjaku is outside of using Geto's technique of chaos manipulation. And in the most recent chapter, Yuki is absolutely dominating him in a 1v1 fight with her chaos technique, with Kenjaku at one point even stating that he's not sure whether he'll be able to take down this absolute monster. So that's why I'm placing Kenjaku square into last place until we see more from him, which then brings me into spot number 4. Yuki Tsukumo comes in a 4th place, and while we haven't seen much of her until the most recent chapter, one thing is clear: Yuki Tsukumo is an absolute fucking beast. Yuki has managed to land significantly more damage to Kenjaku than anyone else in the series so far. She one-shot this man's curse technique and then revealed that her Shikigami is actually a cursed tool, which allows her to add mass to either herself or the curse tool, allowing for her to land some of the heaviest blows I have seen in the series, period. Like, for real. Look at this woman punch this man Kenjaku's arms in half. He couldn't guard against her attacks, and she literally made him sail the skies, as well as split this man's arms in half single-handedly. She forced Kenjaku into a corner that he has to use his own domain expansion against her. So for this reason, and for this reason alone, Yuki places above Kenjaku for me until the fight plays out, and then maybe I might swap the two. But right now, Kenjaku in last place and Yuki firmly a 4th place, dominating this man. Coming in at 3rd place is Yuta Okkotsu, and I don't really need to say much about Yuta that hasn't already been said by myself and countless others, but I will, because he's one of my favorites in the series, and I'm just a smidge biased when it comes to Yuta. But this man was and still is a prodigy in the series, and from a young age had massive reserves of cursed energy. He is also stated to be second only to Gojo Satoru in unusual abilities, with even Gojo himself mentioning at one point that Yuta and Hakari will one day be as good as him. Yuta's power on his own is a massive reserve of cursed energy, even more than Gojo himself, and then on top of this he can call upon Rika, who can then refill his used up cursed energy with her own endless supply of cursed energy reserves for 5 minutes straight. I can only imagine in time he'll be able to increase that usage time with training, similar to how Gojo trained Infinity to remain active around the clock. And if all that wasn't good enough, Yuta can copy curse techniques used against him, giving him an arsenal of techniques to alternate between during fights. And we've seen him use cursed speech, sky manipulation, reversed curse technique, as well as outputting immense levels of cursed energy capable of contesting with Ryu Ishigori, whose cursed energy output was the highest recorded ever. I will point out that Ryu's output during this fight was weakened slightly due to him having just used his domain expansion, but this then moves me into my next point. If everything I just mentioned wasn't enough to convince you that he doesn't deserve this spot on the list, he also has his own domain expansion, and while we know absolutely nothing about it, we can only imagine just how powerful it is, considering how powerful he is without it. And he did go toe-to-toe with both Ryu Ishigori and Takako Uro. The dude's a powerhouse. house. This then brings me firmly into second place with Sukuna Ryumen. And yes, while he's technically not a special grade sorcerer and is more of a special grade cursed spirit, the reason I've put him on this list is he's known for being the most powerful cursed spirit, even being dubbed the king of curses. Sukuna's often used as a landmark for power by the powerful, with the disaster cursed Jogo asking how he stacks up in terms of fingers compared to Sukuna. With everything we've seen from him not even being at his full power, it's easy to place him firmly into this spot. However, depending on who you ask, he'd either take number 1 spot or lower, but that's a video for another day. Sukuna, with only 75% of his power or just 15 fingers in the Shibuya instant arc, managed to wipe out the surrounding area with his domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine. But before doing this, he absolutely dominated Jogo in a fight, wiping him and anyone who even dared look at him in a disrespectful manner out. Sukuna himself is a master at throwing hands. The man is simply going to outclass anyone who chooses to fight against him. And then on top of all of this, Sukuna then has his many curse techniques, slash, cleave, and even using some sort of fire technique against Jogo in their fight. Regardless to say, Sukuna is the definition of Black Air Force energy and will throw hands and chase the smoke with whoever wants that beef. Which leads me nicely into number 1, but before we go into number 1, I want to mention some characters in the series I believe should be the rank of special grade eventually, and with a bit more training will completely shake up the power rankings that I've listed in this video. In no particular order, we have Maki Zenin, a sorcerer with heavenly restriction whose power is on par with a prime Toji Zenin, and we all know what Toji did to Gojo in his earlier years, and if you don't know, he violated this man, Gojo. Then we have Kinji Okari, a man who can throw hands like a motherfucker and also is the very definition of Black Air Force energy. A man whose domain expansion is literal cheat codes, affording him unlimited cursed energy and making him unkillable for 4 minutes and 11 seconds straight. I believe this man, with more time to refine his technique and his domain, as well as more information on what he can actually do, will most likely bump him into the rank of special grade. Right now he's supposedly grade 1, but if I'm honest, I feel there should be somewhere a grade in between grade 1 and special grade, because this man Hikari seems to be levels above grade 1, but also not quite special grade, but maybe soon. Next in the honorable mention is Megami Fushiguro, and you're probably thinking, what the f is this guy doing in the honorable mentions? Megami is a child of Toji Zenin and a wielder of the 10 Shadows technique, with a horde of Shikigamis at his disposal, and even an interest from Sukuna himself. I think that we are yet to see the full potential of Megami, and he will one day ascend to special grade, and when that happens, he is completely going to change up to special grade and the power rankings. And finally, in our honorable mentions, we have Fumihiko Takaba, a man with a technique so powerful he can oppose even the top place on this list. His technique allows him to bring anything he finds funny into reality. The only downside is he is totally unaware of his technique, so sadly has no idea how to use it. But imagine what he will be capable of doing once he learns this technique. Think about this for a second. Anything he finds remotely funny will become a reality. If he so thought it was funny that someone's technique was going to produce flowers instead of a meteor, that's what is going to happen. This man, if he learned to control this, could be unstoppable. But moving into our number 1 spot for rankings in the special grades, you guessed it, Gojo Satoru sits atop the pecking order by a clear and long mile. And I mean, do I even need to explain it? At this point, my man's literally cannot be touched due to his infinity technique. Unless he so chooses, no one otherwise is touching this man, plus immense amounts of cursed energy that is seemingly never ends due to his 6 eyes, bringing the cost of cursed techniques infinitely close to 0, meaning almost 0 cost on cursed techniques, allowing this man to consistently use said techniques in combat without fail. And speaking of the techniques, this man has a range of techniques. Let's start with cursed technique Blue, a technique that allows this man to pull in all matter within a certain range to his hands. Then we have Curse Technique Red, which allows Gojo to push away all matter, the opposite of Blue. This technique lets Gojo eviscerate anything in his path by expelling cursed energy to push objects away from him. And then we have the fusion of the two, Hollow Purple, a technique that lets Gojo erase all matter in that attack's path. Not push away, not pull, erase. Anything that comes into contact with this attack is erased instantly. If these attacks being fired as many times as he liked due to his almost infinite cursed energy output doesn't set this in stone for you, then he always has his domain expansion to fall back into. A domain that warps time and space and traps enemy inside an infinite void that fills their mind with more information than they can possibly process, grinding their thoughts and their emotions to a halt, leaving them open for whatever Gojo plans to do with them. And that right there is the top 5 special grades ranked in order, in my humble opinion. But that is all from me. Let me know in the comments below whether you agree or disagree. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and if you want to support the channel even further, consider becoming a member, as it truly does help me out. But that's all from me. Big kisses, much love, and I'll catch you guys all in the next one. Peace.